We are thrilled that you are with us today for getting reacquainted with the GED. This is informational, so there's no PD credit with it. Yeah, I am super excited to have Jonna here to do this GED series. So I'm Krista Mosier, and I am the host today, and I'm joined with Paula Bauer as the backup. We are very glad that you are here with us this day. So this first session is getting reacquainted with the GED, a GED overview and refresh. We are bringing this because I know in the past year and a half with all the COVID, we've kind of steered away from some of the specific things that we need to be watching in our programs. So Jonna McDonough Forsyth is joining us to come in and get us back on track with GED.
Thank you so much, Krista. And I just want to echo Krista's sentiments. Thank you so much for joining me today. I thought, with all the things that have been going on over the last year and a half, and it's still continuing in Texas over, and who knows what the future will hold for us. It might be nice to just kind of get together and get reacquainted with GED, especially if you, for those of you who maybe haven't taken a closer look at our website or at the test in recent months or even the last couple of years. It might be nice to just kind of revisit the test itself. So this is what we sometimes refer to as our GED 101. It's a high-level overview of the GED program. And so I'm going to share with you some information about GED, but I'm also going to take some time out before we end today to go to our website as well and share with you some of the web pages that you can find some of the resources and information that I am referring to today directly from our website for future reference. So our session objectives today are to explore our key components and structure of the GED test, to review student outcomes and research data, to provide you with an overview of the GED test, explore some tools for the classroom, provide an overview of content and key strategies, and to share resources from the GED website. And so if we take a look at exploring the program as a whole and how we are moving to the future, our program goal since 2014 has been to build the educated and employed communities of tomorrow, one student at a time. And so with the 2014 series, we saw a new paradigm shift where we looked at critical thinking skills across all content areas, problem-solving skills across all content areas, closed reading skills in all content areas, and evidence-based writing skills in the reasoning through language arts test. And that would be in the extended response requirement. Just a quick look at the scoring of the GED test. The GED College Ready scores improve the chances for college success. So our minimum passing score is 145. This is a passing score for high school equivalency, and anyone in Texas can earn their Texas Certificate of High School Equivalency when they score 145 or above. At 165, GED has determined that to be a college ready score, and that's where we expect students who pass any one of the 4 tests with a 165 to be ready to take college level courses, credit-bearing courses. And in fact, we're really excited that earlier this year, the Texas Higher Ed Coordinating Board announced that they accepted that score as a college-ready score to bypass the TSI. And so they can enter credit-bearing coursework in English and math if they score 165 in institutions of higher ed, those public institutions. We also have a score of 175 that we consider a college ready plus credit. And for those colleges that accept that score, a student may qualify for up to 10 college credit hours. Admittedly, I'm not aware of any school in Texas that provides college credit for that score, but there are colleges scattered throughout the country that do accept that score for college credit. We worked with the American Council on Education for these recommendations for the GED test. So the college ready score for GED, the score of 165 to 174 on any content test, waived from the developmental ed in that content. That would be the non-credit bearing coursework requirements and courses. So they're waived in Texas. That means they're waived from the TSI. That would be the placement testing that the slide refers to. And they're placed directly in credit bearing coursework for reading, English and math. For our GED college ready plus credit of a score of 175 to 200 on any content test, the same as the college ready recommendations, plus up to 10 semester hours of college credit. The national test taker data from 2014 to 2019 includes passing score data of 85% in math, 89% in RLA, science is at 93%, social studies at 90%. On the first attempt of the battery, which would be all 4 tests, that would be what we call a passer. 61% of all students who take it one time pass, and 86% of the passers have passed, including necessary retakes on any of those 4 tests. For college ready, 165 or higher, 6% in math, 12% in RLA, 11% in science, 14% in social studies, and about 20% of our passers received a college ready score of 165 or higher in at least one content area. And about 5% of our passers received a college ready plus credit score of 175% or higher in at least one content area. And generally speaking, in math, RLA, and science, about 2% of our students do receive or earn a score of 175 or higher, and about 3% of our testers in social studies will earn a 175 or higher, and that's national data. We also know that many of our graduates are interested in college, and 2 out of 3 of our testers do express interest when we survey them. Over 35% of our students enroll in college within a year of earning their GED credential, and over 47% of them enroll in college within 4 years of earning their GED credential. What is really remarkable is the gain in persistence that we've seen from pre-2014 to post-2014 GED testing. Persistence is at an all-time high. So before 2014, we would see about 29% persisted to enroll from one semester to another in college. And after 2014, we see a 90% persistence rate of students who continue to enroll semester to semester. The hard work is really paying off, and this number currently surpasses overall community college persistence rates. What you see on your slide right now are all the colleges that have accepted the College Ready or the College Ready Plus credit recommendations from ACE. Approximately 250 colleges across the US have implemented one or both of the recommendations. Colorado Community College System accepts both. Connecticut Public College System, Georgia Technical College System, Illinois Community College System accept the College Ready score. Kansas Board of Regents 2 and 4-year colleges accept the College Ready score. Kentucky Community College System accepts the College Ready score. Ohio Community College System, Virginia Community College System also accepts a College Ready score. And as I mentioned previously, the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board recently made their announcement back in May. And there are some additional colleges, although not entire systems, in states like Alaska, Arizona, Kansas, Massachusetts, Missouri, New Jersey, Oregon, Rhode Island, and Washington. So let's talk a little bit more about an overview of the test itself. There are 4 content areas. Reasoning through language arts is essentially your English test. Students have 150 minutes to complete it, and it includes 45 minutes for the extended response. It is timed separately, and students do have a 10-minute break. The mathematical reasoning test is your math test. Students have 115 minutes. Part 1 does not allow a calculator. Part 2 does provide or allow a calculator. Social studies is 70 minutes and the science test is 90 minutes. The GED test is available in English and Spanish, and there is a wide array of accommodations available, including Zoom text, alternate color palettes, Braille, screen reader, extended time, paper testing for special circumstances, and the test is delivered via computer. The exception to this is if a test taker has a documented disability that will prevent them from testing on computer. So we do have some paper-based testing for accommodated tests that can't be provided for on computer. We'll also have a special session in this GED series of webinars on accommodations next week. So if you'd like some more detailed information on accommodations, I hope you'll join me for that. I'll be joined by our manager for accommodations, Debbie Burkholt, who will be sharing some detailed information on accommodations and the process to apply for them and take your questions. The GED test does have a variety of item types, including multiple choice, fill in the blank, drag and drop, hotspot, drop down, and again, the extended response is only on the language arts test. So let's take a quick look and an overview of the RLA test. Content is integrated reading and writing. It does include closed reading, clear writing, editing, and understanding the use of standard written English in context. It does use source text of about 75% nonfiction and 25% fiction. And the passage length is about 400 to 900 words with a range of text complexity, including text at the college and career ready level, and technology enhanced items and extended response. If we look at an overview of the mathematical reasoning test, the content includes 45% quantitative problem solving, including number operations and geometric thinking, 55% algebraic problem solving. It does use a calculator. It's the Texas Instruments TI 30XS Multiview. The calculator is allowed on most items. And it includes an integration of mathematical practices. The test does have a formula page, symbols, and calculator page provided. If we look at an overview of the social studies test, the content includes 50% civics and government, 20% United States history, 15% economics, 15% geography and the world. And the overriding themes that are assessed include the development of modern liberties and democracy and dynamic responses in societal systems. Social studies practices, including analyzing, thinking, and reasoning. And of course, those technology enhanced question items are included. We take a quick look at an overview of the science test. It includes content such as life science at 40%, physical science at 40%, earth and space science at 20%. And themes include human health and living systems, energy and related systems, and those science practices include reasoning and thinking scientifically. And of course, the question types are those tech enhanced items. You'll note there's no extended response on the science test.
There was a question.
Sure.
Going back to the scoring. How does the 145 passing score translate to a percent score? Is it like approximately 65%?
So and this is sort of a standard practice with assessment. In assessment like GED, you have what's called a scaled score model, and that's where the 145 comes into place. It is not equated to a percent per se. And it's really technical understanding, but it follows a scaled score model based on test design and norming across performance of items and forms as they are created, given the items on a given form. So the short answer is no, it's not equated to a 65%, but it's not equated to a specific percentage. Having been a teacher, I know there's this desire to go, okay, I need to look for a percentage that a passing percentage, because that's what we think of in terms of classroom, but scaled score assessments don't work in the same way. Right.
All
Is there another
right.
question, Krista?
Yes, there was another question. Are all the questions on the math test word problems?
Are they word problems? In general, I would say yes. Some of them are a little bit longer than others. And in all honesty, I would suggest, if you haven't done this, there is a free practice test on our website. It's very, very brief. There might be 10 questions, but that would give you a brief overview of the types of questions. And then also, if you have an opportunity to take a GED Ready practice test, I would highly recommend it. I found it really informative for myself to take that. Honestly, if you've ever heard me speak anywhere else, you know that math was my least favorite subject and like my lowest performing subject ever in school. And so I tend to pick on math when I think about the challenges some of our students face. And surprisingly, it was like, if not my highest score, my second highest score. So, and that was without any preparation or anything like that. So I think that the math test is very doable because it doesn't, it really looks at math practices, and it's not going to be extremely wordy like the other tests, if that's kind of the root of your question. So I personally love all of the various tools and resources we have available on our website, from targets to indicators to application. What we've done is sort of given you a roadmap to instruction to help you meet your students' needs. There are assessment targets that describe the general concepts that are assessed on the GED test. And then there are indicators that are fine-grained descriptions of individual skills contained within an assessment target. And then the application describes what to look for in student work. And you'll find that within the performance level descriptors, we've included the most underused and the performance level descriptors are one of the most underused and undervalued resources. It is an incredibly helpful tool for the classroom and details those skills students need to pass. There are 4 performance levels included in each of these for each subject, and this document is available in English and Spanish for download on our website. So those performance levels include below passing, the HSC level, which is that 145 score level, the GED College Ready level, and the GED College Ready Plus credit level. And it really gets at what skills are demonstrated at each of those levels and what skills are needed to need development to advance to the next level. So if you have a student where, if you were looking at the performance level descriptor and you could circle pretty much everything at below passing, but at that HSC level, it was a little thin, then you could highlight those areas that need, a little bit more time and attention to develop those skills and advance to that level where they get closer to passing. So how to use the PLDs in the classroom. Here's some helpful tips. Tip 1, assess the student's current skill level. Tip 2, determine when students are ready to test. Tip 3, shape learning activities to address them. Tip 4, add perspective to lesson plans. And there's, again, the link to the PLDs on our website. Skill sets for high impact indicators across content areas to focus your instruction. This is the one document that I am constantly referring to because I think it gives you the biggest bang for your buck. If you don't have a lot of time to really dig in deep to all of the resources, I think we all probably have our go-to guides. And this is the one thing that I'm always pulling up when folks ask me on the fly for something that can be helpful. So what makes indicators high impact? They're important skills that are used across content areas. They may currently receive light coverage in classrooms and lend themselves to straightforward instruction. So from time to time, our assessment services team will give us some insights onto the commonly missed items or areas of skill sets that students are missing the most often on a test. And it often comes right back to these high impact indicators. Okay, so if you go back to our website, what you're seeing on your screen is a screenshot of the relationships between the high impact indicators and what I call the crosswalk across all the content areas. But there is actually a document for each content area of the specific high impact indicators by content area as well, if you'd like to see it by subject. And what you'll find is that there's verbs, common across content areas like reason, synthesize, describe. And what we're really looking at are critical thinking skills, those higher order thinking skills that, depending on the educational gaps that your students are facing, it can be tough to reach for. Okay, but this document might give you some insights on that. So here's just an example. In RLA, you might see a high impact indicator that says order sequence of events in text. And in social studies, that same indicator will read like identify the chronological structure of a historical narrative and sequence steps in a process. Or in science, reason from data or evidence to a conclusion. Or in math, it might read search for and recognize entry point for solving a problem and plan a solution pathway. But it all comes back to sequence order. So let's take a closer look at writing and the GED test, some new skills. Not that long ago, the assessment team did a pilot study and some research questions really looking at how testers engage in the extended response question. Do test takers understand what they need to do to complete the task? Are they comfortable interacting with the computer? Do they use the space in the response box? Do they use the on-screen answer guidelines and navigate the tabs successfully? And are they prepared for the test? Do they have a MyGED account, and do they use the resources on GED.com? And some of the outcomes in this was in 2019, there were a few updates in English and Spanish. You'll see that they have a larger white space to type in. The instructions are bolded, and they have more details in terms of reading, planning, and writing out their essay response. And there's more emphasis on analyzing the two texts to determine which writer presents the stronger case, and to develop your own argument in which you explain how one position is better supported than the other. And then type your response in the box on the right. And the tabs were reduced to 2 pages. The extended response on the RLA includes 1 or more source texts. Texts are offered 2 positions on a given topic, and a prompt that provides instruction on what the student is expected to do. The purpose of the extended response is to provide test takers with an opportunity to demonstrate knowledge of writing conventions in English, understanding of what they've read, how well they use evidence to build arguments, and their ability to clearly communicate their thinking in their own words. The extended response measures in 3 traits. Trait 1 is the creation of arguments and the use of evidence. Trait 2 is the development of ideas and organizational structure. Trait 3 is clarity and command of standard English and conventions. So we want students to know what is expected. When you write, determine which position is presented in the passages is better supported by evidence from the passage. Explain why the position you chose is the better supported one. Remember, the better supported position is not necessarily the position you agree with, and defend your assertions with multiple pieces of evidence from the passage. Build your main points thoroughly. Don't forget the little stuff. Expose students to a structured approach to the writing task and help them understand that they need to write a complete response, not just a short paragraph. It really does need to be, at least 300 to 500 words, and provide commentary on the evidence cited. Explain the why. Fully develop 2 or 3 ideas rather than mention a lot of things without detail, and leave 5 minutes at the end for proofreading. That is one of the things that is evaluated. So inquiring minds want to know a few things about RLA, reasoning through language arts. Burning question about the extended response items and scoring. Can you pass the RLA test and score 0 on the ER item or the extended response item? Probably the #1 topic. And yes, you can, but most test takers who pass at the HSE level do get some score points. The ER is designed to measure skills at the higher HSE levels and CCR levels. So many test takers still do not understand the ER task, and GED testing is still conducting research into how to best explain the task and what is required. And so this is just an ongoing effort on our part to continue to provide support to both educators and students to perform well. It is possible that you can pass the test at the bare minimum without doing the essay. That is possible, but they are not going to get to a college ready level and bypass TSI. If part of their plan is to go to college, it would be great if they could get to college ready score level, and they'll be better prepared for college if they are able to score some points on that extended response. So we highly encourage students to really try to up their game when it comes to responding to that essay and get the points where they can so that they're better prepared for their future. Another burning question on the extended response items and scoring is, why should I spend time on teaching writing skills if students don't need many points on writing to pass the test? Writing skills are one of the critical differentiators of long-term success, and any score point earned counts towards the overall score. So building skills in this area helps develop thinking skills that impact performance on the entire test. And another burning question that we get on the extended response items and scoring, how does the computer score the ER item? What is it looking for? So the automated scoring engine catalogs the characteristics of a writing sample. It compares those characteristics to real exemplar responses with known scores and assigns a score based on similarity to existing exemplars. If no similar responses are found, then the ER or extended response is human scored. And we do have some additional professional development on the argumentative writing requirement. So where to access a step-by-step guide for argumentative writing, there are 2 links to our YouTube channel on this slide from our Tuesdays for Teachers webinars that we offer probably about 8 Tuesday for Teacher professional development sessions in a year. The first one is Thinking Strategies for Crafting Constructed Responses Part 1. And the second one is Thinking Strategies for Crafting Constructed Responses One Step at a Time, Part 2. I will say that when we go to the website, there are some additional videos that I consider opportunities for mini lessons on the ER that you can also use, and that also are available either directly from our website or from YouTube as well, that Pro Literacy and New Readers Press actually produced a couple of years back. Building student knowledge and critical thinking skills for social studies. Okay, so I mentioned before that the social studies test has focused themes of development of modern liberties and democracy, and then dynamic responses in societal systems. And if we look at this matrix, we have some example topics across the top. So the content of the social studies test includes civics and government at 50%. In the theme of development of modern liberties and democracy, that can include types of modern and historical governments and structure and design of US government. But under the theme of dynamic responses in societal systems, it can also refer to political parties, campaigns and elections, and contemporary public policy. US history makes up 20% of the test. And if we're looking at that development of modern liberties and democracy, that would include key historical documents and Civil War and Reconstruction. And under dynamic responses in societal systems, that would include World War I and II and the Cold War. Economics is 20%, and under the development of modern liberties and democracy, it would include key economic events that shape American government and policies. And under dynamic responses in societal systems, it would include things like fundamental economic concepts and economic causes and impacts of war. For geography and the world, that's about 15% of the test. Under development of modern liberties and democracy, again, that would include development of classical civilizations. And under dynamic responses in societal systems, that would include things like borders between peoples and nations and human migration. I can't quite see the top of my slide, unfortunately, but if you look at the GED testing service assessment guide, the social studies content is broken into the focusing themes and practices, and then students need to be able to apply those skills by analyzing and evaluating to create meaning and understanding within these themes and practices. So from an instructor focus, we can look at civics and government and history as being 70% of the test. Really focused instruction on these two areas better position students to pass the test and gain valuable knowledge to use in real life within their own communities. An example to that might be the preamble to the US Constitution. And if we focus on primary and secondary sources, we can engage students and build reading and thinking skills. It includes official documents, newspapers, magazines, speeches, interviews, journals, and photos. And some examples include the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, and speeches such as the MLK speeches. Some secondary sources include post-event history. Instructors might also focus on enduring issues. This is a great way to build content knowledge and to assess cause and effect, and to reinforce ideas and beliefs on which our government and political system is based, and to create an understanding of the fundamentals of both US history and civics and government. If we take a look at building student knowledge and critical thinking skills in science, if it's green or wriggles, it's biology. If it stinks, it's chemistry. If it doesn't work, it's physics. Handy guide to science. Again, looking at those focusing themes of science, we have human health and living systems. And in life science, which is 40% of the test, that includes things like human body and health, organization of life, molecular basis for heredity, and evolution. And physical science is 40% of the test. But again, in human health and living systems, that includes things like chemical properties and reactions related to human systems. And in earth and space science, which is 20% of the test, that includes interactions between earth systems and living things. In energy and related systems as a focusing theme, for life science, that would include things like relationships between life functions and energy intake and energy flows in ecological networks or ecosystems. And in physical science, that would include things like conservation, transformation, and flow of energy. It would also include work, motion, and forces. In earth and space science, it would include things like Earth and its system components, structure, and organization of the cosmos. And again, I would refer you back to the assessment guide for more details on how the themes and practices in science help students learn to apply skills of science to develop an understanding of those scientific concepts. Oh, there we go. Instructor focus in science. Can your students evaluate whether data supports a hypothesis? Identify variables in an experimental process? Determine a method for collecting data? Determine the correct process for an experiment? Draw a conclusion based on scientific data? Create a hypothesis? Or design a scientific investigation based on a given hypothesis? These are the things we need to help our students be able to do in order to apply their knowledge on the science test. And if we think about focusing concepts and problem solving on the mathematical reasoning test, it's all about problem solving. And so problem solving in the classroom, on the screen, you see a cartoon and the caption reads, "I think you should be more explicit here in step 2. And you have two middle-aged men in suits and ties at a chalkboard, and there's some kind of mathematical process on the board. And in the middle of it, it says, ... then a miracle occurs, ... and some additional mathematical symbols and equations, perhaps. And so one of them is pointing to then a miracle occurs, and we can assume that he's the one that's suggesting that I think you should be more explicit here in step 2. So problem solving, we can refer back to Polya's 4 steps to problem solving, which includes understanding the problem, devising a plan, carrying out that plan, and looking back at it and providing some reflection on it. And there's more details in his book, How to Solve It, in 2nd edition, 1957, Princeton University Press. But We need to help students build their reading skills and increase their conceptual knowledge in math. To help them build a math vocabulary and depend less on rote memory and more on conceptual knowledge, and to encourage perseverance when solving problems. The GED Ready, assessing readiness. So the GED Ready provides realistic practice, and it is computer-based, and it is on the same platform as the GED test. It is standardized and normed just as the operational test that leads to the text-based credential. And it is put under the same norming and standardization study as the official test. It is predictive. So while there's no guarantee that if you score 145 or better on the GED Ready test, it is predictive that if you score 145 or better, you are likely to pass the test. And it is half length. So it is, if a student were to take all 4 subjects at a time, it would be a total of 4.25 hours in length. The GED Ready test provides feedback and links to study suggestions, which provide you with a focused study plan. If you haven't seen a GED Ready score report recently, it provides you with a checklist. You have the option of selecting the curriculum material or prep material that your student is using to prepare for the GED. And when you do so, it provides you with a checklist of study topics associated with that curriculum. If it's paper-based, it's going to give you the approximate page numbers. And I say approximate because if a publisher has revised or republished their books and we don't have that roadmap updated, then the page numbers might be slightly off. They'll give you like chapter numbers and titles. If you're using an online curriculum, it will give you the lesson names and topics to go back to those specific lessons in the online curriculum. It provides you with instructional feedback on the extended response. You do have to score it as the adult educator in the room, but there is a scoring tool available on the website to help you do that. And there's a whole nother PD session that we've archived on how to apply that scoring tool to a student's essay. There are online scoring tools to provide writing scores, feedback, and suggestions for improvement. The GED Ready does have 3 score level indicators. There is what we call the red zone. It's the not likely to pass. That's anywhere from 100 to 133 score. There's the yellow zone. It's too close to call. There's somewhere between 134 and 144. And then there's the likely to pass zone. We call that the green zone. It's 145 or better. We do have some resources available, some tools for test takers and for yourself to help students pass.
Jonna, before you go there, we do have
question?
a question. Can a teacher take a GED Ready test to get a sense of the test? And is there a special way for a teacher to take a GED Ready test?
How timely, Krista, because the answer is right in front of you. Yes. Yes, I actually highly encourage you to take a GED Ready test. And so 3 things that we encourage you to do. Feel free to create an account at GED.com. And I'm going to take a break here from the slide deck in just a moment and go to that website. Familiar yourself with the student experience in order to help your students. I would suggest that you use a non-work email address. When you create an account on GED.com, we do ask that instead of your real last name that you put in candidate, only so that anyone with the last name candidate, we automatically opt out of like our email blasts that we would typically blast students who opt into our communication. So you won't get those annoying emails that say, gosh, you just have one more GED Ready test to take, or, those kinds of things. It's not required, but we do recommend it. Take at least one subject of the GED Ready test. And I do still have some vouchers that I would be happy to send you a voucher code if you would like to email me. At the end of this deck, I do have my contact information for anyone who doesn't have it yet. And then highly recommend that you bookmark the GED.com website on the educators and admin page. But I'm going to go to that page now and show you why you should do that. So give me one moment and we'll exit the slides.
TCAL, we have several courses in the PD portal that goes right along with the GED test. And while we're waiting, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the PD portal and just show you what TCAL has that's available to programs. So when you go into the PD portal, we can go into here, and I always, whenever I do a search, I go over to the Find Training and search here. And I'm just simply going to put in GED. Just keep it simple. And so when I do that, and I'm going to click Show More. So at the moment, we have 4 GED sponsored face-to-face GED training: science content, social studies content, reasoning through the language arts, and the mathematics. We have just a few trainers around the state. I am one of those that is an actual GED trained trainer presenter. But we also have GED sponsored and written online courses, which is building reading skills in the GED classroom, putting reading to work in the GED math classroom, focusing instruction in the GED classroom, and writing with evidence. So, and the writing with evidence, or excuse me, the focusing instruction is where it gets into those performance level descriptors and high impact indicators. So like I was just saying, the focusing instruction is PLDs and those high impact indicators and such. So we do have some things that you can already request from the PD portal. All right, so at this point, I'm going to go back to the GED.com.
So if you wouldn't mind, I think we're on the educators and admin page.
All right.
Not yet. Let's go there.
Right there.
Great. And then on the left-hand margin, you will see that you have a number of resources available to you. You have the program overview, a number of resources there. But let's go to teaching the GED test. And then this is where you'll see the free classroom materials and teaching resources. And if we can go to free classroom materials first. And you'll find that there are a number of tutorials here for students. There's the calculator tutorial. They can get accustomed to the scientific calculator that is provided. Now they can bring a calculator with them, but this calculator is available on screen if they were to go to a computer-based test. If they are going to take the test online, and in our last session in this GED series, we're going to talk more about our online proctored test. They cannot have a handheld calculator. They have to rely on the calculator provided in the test, and that tutorial is here. And then you will find, as you scroll down, the quick little preview of the test. And so they have a practice test and a little study guide for students as well. It really was written for students. And then if we can scroll up a little bit, Krista. You're such a great navigator. Thank you. And then you have your reference sheets and extended response tools and practice as well. So if you're looking for more information on the extended response, there's some quick tips and a scoring tool guide. These are the little mini lessons that I mentioned earlier, the extended response videos that Pro Literacy put together. I think there's something like 8 or 9 of them all together, and it goes through each component of the extended response. So this is a really great way to help students really dig in a little bit deeper and focus in on each of those requirements. They're available on YouTube. If you click that Watch More button, you're going to see all of those clips available as well. I would, since you've scrolled down, I'm just going to quickly mention the newsletter. If you are not getting our newsletter yet, I would highly recommend that you go ahead and sign up for it. I believe we send out maybe 10 a year. Anytime we're getting ready for a Tuesday for Teachers and it's leading up to it, we do ask for folks to register in advance.
And so this is a really great way to get that kind of information, or any updates to the test or the GED program as a whole, any new information coming out, announcements regarding our national conference, which hopefully next summer we'll be able to resume. That would be announced in our in-session newsletter. So if you haven't signed up for that, I highly recommend that you take a minute to do that. And then if you click on the, and you don't necessarily have to do this, Krista, but in the purple ribbon, top resources says professional development training. There's a link to view resources. All of our Tuesday for Teachers sessions, if you're not able to join us for that live session, we do archive them. And when they are archived, we archive the recording and all of the supporting documentation. So if there were any supplemental resources or materials shared for that session, it is also included with that archived recording, and you're welcome to download it, watch it at your leisure, download the materials and use them if you think they would be helpful to you and your students at any time. And these are the more recent ones, but as you scroll down this page, then you can also find more historical webinars that have been archived, again, on our YouTube channel. So it'll end up clicking you into our YouTube channel for some older sessions that have been archived over time.
And John, I'm going to break in.
There's a question.
Well, actually, I was just going to tell everybody that these sessions do count as professional development. As you can see, there is places to download the certificate. So you can download the certificate and give those to your PD coordinator, and we will make sure that these events get put into teams so that you can get credit. And right. Juanita, this actual session you're doing right now is informational webinar with no credit, but the professional, the webinars on the GED.com site do count.
The resources that I covered in the slide deck, the high impact indicators, the assessment guide, there's an educator's guide, and then also the PLD's performance level descriptors. They're all available for download as well from this website. On the left-hand side, you'll note that there is also a click link for GED Manager and GED Prep Connect. That is also in our third session. We're going to talk about GED Manager and online proctored or OP testing in great length, because as we, many programs are doing virtual or hybrid kind of programming for students to meet student needs. And these tools, whether you're able to meet with your students in person or you are in a hybrid situation in virtual classrooms, they are tools that you can access from any laptop computer. They are tools that your students can use. GED Manager really is for you as an educator, but it just means that you have access to the same information about your students that they have access to in their accounts. And the online proctor test just increases the testing opportunities that your students have, because test centers all across the state are struggling to maintain their capacity as COVID, waxes and wanes. And it varies across the state. There are some test centers who struggle to remain open, and there are others who haven't had much issue staying open at all, even if it means reduced capacity. So that's going to vary depending on what area of the state you're in and what area of the state your students are in, but certainly has provided some capacity where other folks have not had the opportunity to test at a test center. So we're going to talk in great length on, about those two supports and opportunities in our third session.
One thing, I'm not sure we got finished with Nancy Crawford's question is there a special way for a teacher to take a GED ready test? You were kind of getting into that. You were talking about vouchers.
Right.
And like that.
Sure. So since I'm not immediately able to turn to my contact slide, let me give you my contact information very quickly. My phone number is 512-202-1316. It's 512-202-1316. Thank you, Paula. And my email address is jonna.m as in Mary, CDONOUGH ged.com. Feel free to call or email me, and I will provide you with a voucher for one GED Ready test of your choice. And you can take a GED Ready test of your choice and experience what your students experience and generate your own score report and see what that looks like for your students. I happen to think it's just a very underutilized resource because it can really help pinpoint where your students are successful and where they are not. So if time is of the essence, it can help you make some really quick instructional decisions to help them move forward.
All
And
right.
if you have other questions, feel free to contact me anytime.
And Jonna is extremely responsive. She's very, very good at answering questions. So again, thank you so much, Jonna. I'm glad we were able to
There she is.
be able to jump in and take over while you got your stuff back together. And
I so
right.
appreciate you guys. Thank you again for the teamwork and coordination. And I'm so glad everybody was able to join us today. And I hope you'll join us again next week. Thank you.
Yes, accommodations next week. It's a huge one.
All right.
Well, your dog
Take care.
will be joining us.
Yeah, every time, always. Thank you.